This is the modern-day deserts of Egypt, vast, rugged landscapes where golden dunes meet towering rock formations beneath endless skies. But had you been here in September 1940, this was ground zero. The Italian invasion of Egypt was the opening major land offensive in the North African campaign during the Second World War. It began on September 13, 1940, when Italian forces advanced east from Libya into British-controlled Egypt. The invasion was ordered by the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, who hoped to achieve a quick victory while Britain was heavily engaged elsewhere. Capturing Egypt would threaten the Suez Canal, one of Britain's most important supply routes to India, the Middle East, and the Far East. Although Italy declared war on Britain in June 1940, the invasion did not begin until 3 months later because Italian commanders needed time to prepare their forces and gather supplies. The invasion force consisted of approximately 150,000 men from the Italian 10th Army, commanded by General Mario Berti, although operational control during the advance was exercised by General Annibale Bergonzoli after Berti became ill. The main units involved included the 1st Black Shirt Division, 2nd Black Shirt Division, 1st Libyan Division, 2nd Libyan Division, 63rd Infantry Division, 62nd Infantry Division, and the Catanzaro Infantry Division. The Italians also deployed around 600 artillery pieces, over 250 tanks, mostly the light L3 tankettes, and M11/39 medium tanks, and several hundred aircraft from the Regia Aeronautica. Although numerically superior, much of the equipment was outdated and many units lacked motor transport. Opposing the Italians was the British Western Desert Force, commanded by Lieutenant General Richard O'Connor, under the overall command of General Sir Archibald Wavell. The British force numbered only about 36,000 troops and consisted primarily of the 7th Armoured Division, known as the Desert Rats, the 4th Indian Infantry Division, and supporting artillery, engineers and Royal Air Force units. Despite being heavily outnumbered, British forces possessed better training, more reliable communications and more modern armoured vehicles, including the heavily armoured Matilda II infantry tank, which proved almost immune to most Italian anti-tank weapons. The Italian plan was cautious rather than aggressive. Instead of making a rapid drive towards Alexandria or the Suez Canal, the 10th Army advanced slowly along the Mediterranean coast road. Engineers had to build roads and water pipelines across the desert, while supply convoys struggled to keep pace with the advancing troops. Italian commanders feared exposing their flanks in the open desert and therefore concentrated their forces near the coast, where supplies were easier to deliver. Air support and artillery were used to protect the advance, but poor coordination between the different branches of the military limited their effectiveness. During the first week of the offensive, Italian forces crossed the Egyptian border with relatively little resistance. British troops deliberately withdrew while conducting delaying actions, destroying bridges and attacking supply columns before falling back. By the 16th of September 1940, the Italians had advanced around 60 miles, 95 kilometers, and occupied the town of Sidi Barrani. Rather than continuing east, the 10th Army halted and constructed a series of heavily fortified camps separated by several kilometers. Italian commanders believed they needed time to improve supply lines before resuming the offensive, but this pause allowed the British to prepare a counterattack. The invasion itself resulted in relatively light casualties. Italian losses during the advance are estimated at around 530 killed, wounded and missing, while British and Commonwealth forces suffered approximately 150 casualties. However, these figures represented only the initial invasion. The much greater losses came 3 months later during Operation Compass, when British and Commonwealth forces launched a surprise offensive against the isolated Italian camps. Between December 1940 and February 1941, the 10th Army was virtually destroyed. Around 130,000 Italian and Libyan soldiers were captured, hundreds of tanks and more than 800 guns were lost, and the British advanced hundreds of kilometers into Libya. The Italian invasion of Egypt ultimately failed to achieve any of its strategic objectives. The advance stopped well short of Alexandria and never threatened the Suez Canal. Poor logistics, outdated equipment, Weak coordination and overly cautious tactics allowed the smaller but more mobile British force to seize the initiative. The destruction of the Italian 10th Army during Operation Compass was one of Britain's greatest early victories of the war and forced Adolf Hitler to send the German Afrika Korps, commanded by General Erwin Rommel, to North Africa in February 1941. The arrival of German forces transformed the campaign into a prolonged and fiercely contested struggle that continued until the Allied victory in Tunisia in 1943.